Thank you very much, Rina Saeed Khan, for granting this interview to Politics and Development magazine for CDKN and Lead Pakistan. You attended the Cancun conference and you also attended the Copenhagen conference. Can you please tell us the difference between the two in terms of Pakistan's preparation?
I wasn't officially part of either delegation because I went to Copenhagen as a member of the Climate Change Media Partnership, which is a separate organization not based in Pakistan but based in London predominantly. It's comprising PANAS, Internews, and the International Institute for Environment and Development, IED, based in London. So I was more like an outsider, and also I would spend most of my time in the media room with the other journalists from around the world. So, but what my the little interaction that I had with the Pakistani delegation, because in Copenhagen I was trying to follow what was actually going on, because it was a very important conference. I mean, at least we thought it would be a very, very important conference where something very solid would come out. The future of humanity and
But you have been writing about these events and you were aware about
true.
the performance of the
So
Pakistani delegation.
that's true. So then I did, of course, I covered Shah Mahmood Qureshi's speech, and I interviewed him briefly when he came, because of
And you must have met the
unfortunately
delegates.
I met some of the delegates, not all of them, because it was a large delegation. But from what I can tell you from an outsider's point of view, what struck me most the differences between Copenhagen and Cancun in terms of the Pakistani delegation is that this time in Cancun, the delegation was much more focused. It comprised, I think, of many more technical people who, this might have been their first experience at a COP, but they seem to be very dedicated and very interested in the process, very interested in learning about it. And I think it was a very good idea. I think it was Climate Change Knowledge, CDKN,
Climate Development Knowledge Network.
Climate Development Knowledge Network's idea to bring in people from the provincial disaster management, people from the planning division, and IG forests. And I think that was a very good idea to expand the capacity of the negotiating team, because I think in Copenhagen, and I mean to a large extent in Cancun, it was Pakistan's Foreign Office that was running the show. And I mean,
who should have run the show?
I think that's up to the delegation, whoever forms the delegation, whether it's a Ministry of Environment or whether it's a Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Raina, you have been writing about these environmental issues, and you are a very knowledgeable person.
I think as long as
your opinion matters.
Okay, well, as long as the Ministry of Environment is considered an unimportant ministry in Pakistan, which is not really worth much, and it's not one of those coveted ministries, then I think the situation is not going to improve, because we just don't have the capacity. The Foreign Office did a very good job. They did it because they're capable, and their English is very good, their writing abilities are very good, and they're able to grasp, and also they've been following this process longer. Whereas I think Ministry of Environment people keep getting shuffled around, because this time around there was a different team, except for I think the DG Environment who was also in Copenhagen, but this time around there was a different faces, different team sent from the ministry. So then you don't have the continuation, and I think Malik Amin Aslam was the only one who was also there, but he's not technically part of the Ministry of Environment. He came as a consultant, I think. He was once part of the Ministry of Environment as a state minister for environment, but no longer. So you don't have a continuity, whereas the Foreign Office, two, three people have been consistently going and attending these talks, so they know exactly what's going on. They've been following the process. It's a very technical process. It's not rocket science. It's not that you can not grasp it. It's above and beyond you. But you do need to really follow it closely and to really get into the intricacies and you learn each time. Even now I don't know what RED Plus is all about. If you ask me, I know a little bit about it, but I can't tell you for sure.
Raina, you have been covering these issues for a long time. What is the level of awareness in the bureaucracy about these serious issues?
I think outside the Ministry of Environment, I don't think there is much knowledge. Now because of the floods that hit Pakistan.
No, I'm asking about the level of awareness of Ministry of Environment officials, bureaucrats who are making policies.
I think there is now a recognition that climate change is affecting because of the floods. I think things have really turned around. I've noticed that there's more eagerness to learn, that there are more reports in the papers, there are more workshops being held, there's more talk now about climate change, and this is all because of the floods that hit Pakistan this past summer. And I think people have started waking up and realizing that. I mean, of course, there was a very small group of individuals, like consultants, maybe a few bureaucrats who had been talking about this and saying, "No, this is what's going to happen to Pakistan," but nobody was really taking them seriously. But when the floods hit Pakistan, because of the abnormal amount of rainfall that fell in just 3 or 4 days in late July, that has really woken up people. And now, people are realizing that monsoon variability is a huge, it's a huge a factor that's going to really affect Pakistan in the years to come. Aside from the glaciers were slowly melting up in the north, the sea level was slowly rising, but those were hitting very remote communities on the coast or up in the high mountains. So it wasn't really affecting mainstream Pakistanis. But with the floods and the monsoons changing, that's going to affect everybody.
Coming back to the performance of delegates, you said that yes, this time there were more technical people. Somebody told me that in Copenhagen the delegates did not have any reading material, but this time I think they had some. Did
They
you
had
notice that?
some policy.
What kind of papers were they carrying?
Well, I wrote some of the background notes, so I think there was literature for them to read, and there was, but I think in terms of preparation, maybe they, as a group, they should have gotten together maybe a couple of times before they left Pakistan and delegated.
That reading material did not come from the Ministry of Environment.
No, it did not. I think it came from LEAD. Yeah. I mean, they took the lead in producing these materials, and also I found that a bit confusing. When I tried to interview certain officials and couldn't. This happened again in Copenhagen, except of course the lead negotiator who knew exactly what Pakistan stance was, what Pakistan was doing, what Pakistan hoped to get out of these talks. So that was again, Farooq Iqbal Khan, who's the lead negotiator for Pakistan, and then I think Dr. Asad, who's also from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the 2-3 core people who are the core members of Pakistan's negotiating
Dr.
team.
Asad Kamal.
Dr. Asad Majid, I think his name is. He didn't go to Cancun, unfortunately, because he's now been delegated to floods, and so he didn't go. But apart from these two individuals, and Meera Ghani, who's she's not technically a part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She's not technically, I think she's working for the Ministry of Environment as a consultant, but she has been following this process for a number of years, so she knows exactly what's going on and what Pakistan's stance is, what Pakistan's position is. So I'm just saying, apart from these 2-3 individuals who actually knew exactly what's going on, the others you would talk to, they were very confused. They said, some had some very bizarre theories. I won't tell you the name of the person, but they said, this is all a plan hatched by the Western world to stop development, in poor countries. So really strange theories. So, there's a big discrepancy between the core group, which really knew what they're doing and really were, as far as, I learned a lot from them, just talking to them and meeting with them. And then the rest of the group and for some it seemed just an outing, nice outing, although it was freezing in Copenhagen. So I think, like I said, this time around, the group was much more focused. Their capacity, their technical ability was much more sort of refined.
And who contributed in enhancing the technical capabilities?
Well, I think that the people were chosen well, different sectors, and of course IG Forest, the top of his, department, and then provincial department ke jo heads the disaster management, they were also the top.
But it's so ironical that the government of Pakistan did not support them.
Yes, I don't think the government of Pakistan has any money. That's what they keep saying. They didn't
NGOs
even have money to give to.
Outsiders like CDKN were supporting. Financing them.
Even Meera Ghani, who's been for offering her services for free, the Ministry of Environment actually cancelled her ticket at the last minute. And
why? What were the reasons?
They said they had no money. So,
how did Pakistani Minister Afridi perform?
I'm a bit disappointed in him. I didn't really pursue him this time in terms of quotations or in trying to get the story from him, because in Copenhagen he seemed completely lost. Maybe he's learnt a lot. It's maybe I should not be so dismissive, and I should have
Lost in
tried
what
to
sense?
lost, like he really didn't seem to know what was going on, and so I was a bit disappointed, and I wanted to send positive stories back to Pakistan. I didn't want to keep repeating the whole, and Farooq, the fact is that Farooq and Mira and Asad, they were people who knew what they were doing and they were doing a good job. So why report on the negatives when you had very positive members? For example, Farooq is the head of the adaptation board. Which is a big achievement for a Pakistani to be elected. And he was elected by the UNFCCC process. But of course, he was elected as a member of Pakistan's delegation, not as an outsider, right? So being part of the process, he then did really well and he was elected. And I think even Shafkat Kaka Khel Saab, he's on the committee of the CDM board, and again he's been elected as well, so he's also very competent, and he's been coming to these COPs now for a while. So you have, like I said, you have these, I wouldn't say more than 4 or 5 very, very competent people, and then the rest are just, but this time at least,
How many people
they were
did they
competent,
carry?
but maybe they didn't know as much, but maybe they learn,
How
so
many people did they carry?
I think in Copenhagen there were about 40. I didn't count, about almost 40. Because you see, you also have people coming in
And in
from
Cancun?
Berlin, like the Pakistani mission in Berlin, and then the Pakistani mission in New York. And you have people joining the delegation. And then you had the ambassador from Germany coming, Shahid Kamal as well. And so the delegation, and then I think there was somebody from Geo who joined the delegation. I mean, not as officially part of the delegation, but he came to cover the minister, which is Shah Mahmood
To
Qureshi.
cover the ministers only.
Yeah, which was the last 2 days of the Copenhagen.
So covering ministers is a very important issue at such
For
conferences.
some journalists, I guess.
So, what, in your opinion, is the most important thing to cover, to write about in international events like that? And to what extent our media strategy was effective?
Well, there was no media strategy. Like I said, I wasn't officially part of the delegation, although Lead did put my name down, so I got a pink badge. But I had come with a different group, and their objectives are very different. Was to give opportunities to journalists from developing countries to come and talk, cover these talks, which are very important because the decisions made at these talks will impact all our countries in the future. So their mandate was completely different, and their training was very different because theirs was an overall training of the whole UNFCCC process, how did it come about, the Kyoto Protocol, what does it mean for developing countries, the future of the Kyoto Protocol, then the other track, the 2 tracks being discussed, the long-term.
We didn't have any media strategy.
No, there was no media strategy. No, it was I had to, literally, do my own stories, get people to give me quotes. I mean, there was no. I think in Copenhagen, I got some help from Mira. I have to be honest. She, as part of the delegation, she gave me a lot of stories. There were some youth, Pakistani youth that were part of the delegation who had been selected by a different process. So I did a couple of, so I got a lot of stories out of because of Mira was very active, and she, but this time around either she was too busy or